Okay, here's a sampling of the add, subtract, multiply, and divide worksheets. These are just some of the ones that were asked for. So you can only add or subtract, or what I like to call combine, like terms. Like terms have the same variables and the same exponents. So 13n squared and a negative 13n squared are going to add to 0. How about the highest one? What is negative 2n to the fourth and negative 6n to the fourth? Negative 2 and negative 6 would combine to give me negative 8 of the same thing. And then how about 11n and a negative 3n? 11 and a negative 3 I think is a positive 8. And that should be the answer unless I missed a term. Let me verify. I did my n squareds, I did my n to the fourth, and I did my n's. So that should be the answer. Any questions on 15? Now if it's subtraction, you can change the signs and add, or I like to say distribute this negative. If I was to distribute this negative, I would have 5a plus 4. That would make that a negative 5a and a negative 3. 5a and negative 5a again are going to add to 0. Now if you have 4 and a negative 3, I think those are going to add or combine to give you a 1. Are there any questions on 7? So the answer for 7 on add subtract is 1. 11 on add subtract, again I would distribute this negative because this is a subtraction. By distributing the negative, what you're doing in effect is simply changing all the signs of your second part there. So that's going to become a negative 10a, a positive 2a to the fifth, and that negative 14 will become a positive 14. I like to do it in standard form, in other words, going decreasing powers. So look at the highest power. 12a to the fifth and 2a to the fifth would combine to give me 14a to the fifth. Just be careful there's none we missed. I think that's all there is. Now how about negative 10a to the third and 14, any other thirds, or is that it? What's the next highest power after 5, however? So let's do this one. Are there any other of those? A to the fourth? No. So I'm going to put plus 14a to the fourth. And finally, any a to the thirds? Is that an a to the third? Are there any other a to the thirds to combine? How about a squareds? Any a squareds? No. Finally, how about a negative 6a and a negative 10a? They would combine to give me negative 16a. Let me just verify. Negative 16 looks good. Any questions on 11? Distribute the negative and then just add or combine. Okay, on multiply and divide, we have number 5 was asked for. It's the only multiplication given here. You're going to distribute. I don't want to say FOIL. You distribute. 2n times 6n is 12n to the second. 2n times 1 is 2n. 2 times 6n is 12n. And 2 times 1 yields a positive 2. Many, many times the two middle terms will combine. 2n and 12n combine to give me 14n plus 2. Any questions on multiplying? Now, if all you know is foiling, let's say n plus 1 times n squared minus 3n plus 2. If all you know is FOIL, you couldn't do a binomial times a trinomial. That's why we don't teach it as FOIL, you teach it as distribution. What's n times n squared? N to the third. N times negative 3n, negative 3n squared. N times 2, 2n. Now distribute the 1 times n squared is n squared. Please note that I'm lining up like terms. I'm putting the n squared under the n squared. What's 1 times negative 3n? Negative 3n. And 1 times 2 is 2. So simply combine like terms. You'd have n to the third. Negative 3 and a positive 1 is negative 2n squared. That'd be a 2 and a negative 3 is a negative 1n, and plus 2. That's not on your list. I didn't give you a binomial times a trinomial on the worksheet, but you do it the same way. You distribute. Now, number 3 in division. I could do this long division. You have n squared plus 10n plus 18, and this is divided by n plus 5. So what I'm doing here is called long division. This is long division. And here's how it goes. N times what number up here will give me n squared? N times n. So I put an n up here. Now you have to multiply n by both of these. What's n times n? N squared. What's n times 5? 5n. In division, you subtract, which means change the signs and add. So I believe these combine to give me 5n plus 18, because the 18 comes down. Now, n times what will give me 5n? N times what is 5n would be 5. 5 times n is 5n. 5 times 5 is 25. Change the signs and add, and the number you have left is called your remainder. You're supposed to put plus the remainder over the divisor. So hopefully that's the answer I should get when I do synthetic on the same problem. People like synthetic because it's a rather rote process. You simply follow a procedure. Okay, for synthetic division, you have to realize I'm going to do the same problem. N squared plus 10n plus 18 divided by n plus 5. Are all powers represented in decreasing order? N to the second, n to the first, and whether you know it or not, n to the 0. I think they're in decreasing powers, right? If they are, you just bring your coefficients down. That'd be a 1, a 10, and an 18. You draw a line, leave a little space. Oops, I'm sorry. You leave a space, draw the line, and make a box. The number that goes in the box is whatever makes this part 0. So that would be a negative 5. I don't want to go too fast. There is a procedure now. The first number, this 1 right here, simply comes down. Then you multiply. What's negative 5 times 1? Negative 5. You put it here and add. That would be 5. Negative 5 times 5 is negative 25. You put it here and add. Now that 1 means 1n to the 1 less power. What's 1 less than n squared? Just n. That means plus 5. and that means the remainder is -7. So you have n plus 5 plus the remainder over the divisor. Do these answers match? Whether I did it long or whether I did it synthetic. You can only do synthetic division when this part gives you an integer. 10 was asked. I'm assuming you'd like me to do it long division, if that's okay. You have a 42x squared. 42, let me do it in black. 42x squared. Are there any x's there? No, so you have to put plus 0x minus 33. You kind of have to put that 0 term there as a placeholder. You have to do it on this one, you don't on the outside one. Okay, 7x times what equals this? 7x times what number that I put up here is going to equal this? Well, 7 times what is 42? 7 times 6, and x times what is x squared? So I believe this to be what? 6x. 6x times 7x is 42x squared. 6x times 7 is 42x. Now, if you didn't put that 0x term here, you wouldn't have a place to put it. So you kind of have to have that placeholder there. Now, again, in division, what you do is you change your signs and add. So those will add to 0. These will add to negative 42x. 7x times what is negative 42x? I believe it would be a negative 6. Negative 6 times 7x is negative 42x. Negative 6 times 7 is negative 42. Again, you change your signs and add. So that really is going to be a what? Plus there. So you get 7 and 2, is that a 9? So you put plus your remainder over your divisor. So your answer is going to be 6x minus 6 plus the 9 over 7x plus 7. Okay, how about number 9? I can only do this one long, so you have 2x squared. 2x squared minus 17x minus 38 is divided by what? 2x plus 3. 2x times what is 2x squared? 2x times just x, right? 2x times x is 2x squared, and x times 2x and x times 3 is 3x. Change your signs and add. I think that's a negative 20x. Now 2x times what is negative 20x? 2x times negative 10? What is negative 10 times 2x? Negative 20x. And what's negative 10 times 3? Negative 30. Again, change your signs and add. I think that makes a remainder negative 8. So you put plus a negative 8 over 2x plus 3. So hopefully your answer is this. Or I kind of like this bottom answer better because you're incorporating the negative into the sign. But they're both correct. 6 here. I have a squared minus 28. So I'd have to do a squared plus 0a minus 28, and that would be divided by a minus 5. A times a is a squared. A times negative 5 is negative 5a. Change your signs and add. So you have 5a and the negative 28 comes down. A times what is 5a? Well, a times positive 5 is 5a, and positive 5 times negative 5 is negative 25. Changing your signs and adding, you get a remainder of negative 3. So you have a plus 5 and a negative 3 over a minus 5. Same thing I'm going to do over here, get the same answer, hopefully with synthetic. A squared minus 28 is divided by a minus 5. All powers are not represented in decreasing power unless I do this. So now my coefficients are 1, 0, and negative 28. Leave a space, draw a line, make a box. What number makes this 0? 5. That's what goes in the box. Bringing down the first one, you multiply. 5 times 1 is 5. You put it here and add. 5 times 5 is 25. You put it here and add. So that means 1a, that means plus 5, and that means the remainder is negative 3. You can see why some people prefer synthetic, because if you get used to it, it's number 4, long division. I would just write it out. I think all the powers are represented in decreasing order. K squared minus 7k plus 10 is divided by k minus 1. K times what is k squared? K. K times k is k squared. K times negative 1 is negative 1k. Change the signs and add. This would be a negative 6k plus 10. K times what is negative 6k? K times what is negative 6k? Will be a negative 6. Negative 6 times k is negative 6k. Negative 6 times negative 1 is a positive 6. Change your signs and add. That gives me a remainder of 4. So you put your remainder over the divisor. So you get k minus 6 plus the 4 over k minus 1. Now I did that with long division. Let's see if we can do the same thing using synthetic division. You have k squared minus 7k plus 10. And that's divided by k minus 1. All powers are represented in decreasing order. K to the 2, k to the 1, k to the 0. So I write my coefficients down, leave a space, draw a line, make a box. What value makes this 0 is what goes in the box. So what minus 1 is 0 would be a 1. Okay, you bring your first number down, then you multiply. 1 times 1 is 1. You put it here and add. Then you multiply, you get negative 6. You put it here and you add. That means 1k. That means minus 6. And since the 4 is your remainder, it goes over your divisor. So hopefully we get the same answer whether we did it long or synthetic division.